All right, here we go. This is something I've been looking forward to tonight on Square Dancers Talking, Square Dance Callers Talking. I'll get the name right eventually. I've got Justin Russell. Justin Russell is a national square dance caller. He calls all over the place. He is a recording artist, a member of Caller Lab. He also is very active in Caller Lab with some of the committees and all that. He'll talk about some of that tonight.
Yeah.
I met Justin a few years ago, and we'll talk about that too. So, Justin, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So, yeah, things are going well. The sun's shining. Feels like spring here in Memphis. It's a good day.
So you're in Memphis, obviously. Where are you out of? Tell me about that. Where are you from?
Yeah. So born and raised in Memphis. Lived here all my life. Went to University of Memphis and graduated from there. Got one older brother. We actually all started square dancing together back in 2001. So a couple from church got us to go. We didn't realize like it was like a whole series of classes. You know, we thought it was like one time and we were done.
Right.
So parents, they were still married at the time. They danced. My brother, me, and my grandma, we all learned together.
So you've been dancing for a few years. When did the calling bug, if you want to call it that, when did the calling get into you?
So before I finished class, I think like a lot of people. So we had fall classes. This would have been 2001.
Right.
And the caller kind of approached me and said, "Hey, you want to learn a song?" And I'm like, "Well, I can learn a song."
Yeah.
So did that, and it was actually he gave me a record, and I didn't even have a record player. I didn't know anybody that had a record player.
Yeah.
So there was a couple at church. I went over to their house and I recorded it on a tape player, and so like that's how I was practicing it because I didn't have records.
Yeah, gosh. There was a time when all we had was records, so that was good times. I came in right toward the end of that, so I had several records and kind of went away from that. So after you started taking lessons, you decided you want to be a caller. Any callers stand out to you that kind of, gave you a hand and, said, "Hey, try it this way," or just go to schools, or anybody you want to throw out there name-wise?
There was a ton of folks that has helped me. The first caller that taught me to dance, his name was Harry Harris, and he's passed away. But just a good local caller. Had a couple clubs here in the Memphis area. Jim Weaver was another one. Both of them called for top spinners before I started in 2007 is when I took over. So I've been calling there since 2007.
Oh, very nice. So on that note, how many clubs do you have right now, or how many have you had, stuff like that?
Yeah, so right now I just have that one club that before COVID I had a Saturday night group, and but man, it's just hard when you're got a gig out of town or a birthday party or a wedding, and so then when COVID kind of shut everything down for a while, and I got those Saturday nights free for the first time in years. It's kind of hard to go back to that one. So I just have that Thursday night. Top Spinners is the name of the club.
Okay. So you took square dancing lessons. What level do you dance at? How high do you
go? No one's like quoting me on this, right?
No. We'll hold you to it.
I've gone through C1. We actually did. There was a group in Memphis that wanted to learn C1. So Steve Kottman has a group in Knoxville. They dance on Mondays. And so they would record the class and send it to us. And that's how we learned. It was a tape group. And I wanted to learn to call C1 because, some of the weekends they expect you to call up through C. But it wasn't fun for me. It was more overwhelming, and there's so many calls, and it's just plain vanilla C1. Dancers didn't want that. So anyway, so I called through A2.
So you called through A2, okay.
And I can probably dance the C1 too.
Okay. So you've called in a lot of places. Tell me some of the all over the United States, 50 states. What do you think? Where have you been that stands out?
I added it up recently. I know it's in the 20s. I think it's like at least 25. And then I've called in Sweden in 2018.
International caller. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Uh, that one was actually kind of cool because I went to my first caller school in June of 2003,
Mhm.
and then in June of 2018, so 15 years later, I did the Swedish Nationals. Uh, so like I just that felt pretty good. And then I went back. I've called in Denmark as well.
Okay, outstanding. Any other countries? Those two?
No,
Anything else?
so far just those two.
Well, that's impressive. I've always heard about Japan. Of course, I'll probably never get there, but I've heard about it. It sounds nice.
It's on my list. Yeah, that
Speaking of that, I and this is not too recent in the past. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. There is a video from 2015. You, Hunter, and Tony were calling it the Knotheads Jamboree. It's the three of y'all doing patter, and I'm not making it up when I tell you at least once a month I watch just that. It's about 6-7 minutes of patter. It's just the three of y'all up there, and I've stolen so much from that. But I watch it, and the three of y'all, it's just amazing. And I just stumbled onto it, and there's a lot of stuff out there. I watched another one tonight when you and Hunter did Ghost Riders. Y'all did Wave on Wave.
yeah.
I was in Cincinnati. I forget what year it was, but that was phenomenal watching y'all do that. So I've got to see you a lot. In 2018, first time I ever called at a Caller Lab convention, and it was when they were doing duets, and me and you did Leonard Skinner's "Give Me Three Steps." And just kind of knew who you were. And I mean, I'd seen you at other little, like maybe the Georgia convention or Tennessee. And you were like, yeah, I'll do something with you. And dude, that was an honor for me. And of course, I'm a maniac when I go up on stage like that. And, you know, I'm just stomping all over the place and all that. And you're just a controlled perfection, just going. And so I just want to say that was an honor getting to do that with you. And maybe we get to do it again sometime. So that was good times. So
Take it up to Memphis.
I would love to get up there at some point. We will. My wife's a big fan also, so we're definitely going to come up to Memphis at some point just to see you. So we got through who helped you and all that. And and I ask everybody, and I get the same answer for the most part, especially with as many years as you have. Going into a dance, or you not your own club, because that's just sight calling for the most part, but do you rely more on sight or modules or memory? What do you do?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure that's kind of everybody's answer.
It
It's
is.
a combination. So usually I got at least the first couple tips I can call just strictly on modules.
Okay.
Jerry Story, you know, he had the crayons method.
Yep.
It's like control, resolution, and manipulate.
Yeah.
But like the idea that, you know, like head square through four, well, I know I'm looking at my corner. And so even if I'm kind of calling it around, I guess you can call that sight calling. But I'm kind of moving them around and then get them back to where they didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
I can usually tell as I'm calling if I did the chicken plucker and, you know, I just have them across the street. I can usually tell that. So yeah, just kind of a combination of everything.
Yeah. Since I've been doing it for a few years now and going to conventions and all that, I watch all the people that I like to listen to, you being one, the Tonys, the Teds of the world, and Jet Roberts and all that. And, you know, I get intimidated when I go up there in front of a national convention or state. If I don't know anybody, you know, I'll glance out and I'll see one couple that I know from Atlanta, and I'm just like, oh, I can't depend on that because they're way over there.
Yeah.
And so I picked up on little things, and you did one, and I use it every dance I go to. My first plus tip, I start with side square through four. No, it's a head square through four. Touch a quarter, follow your neighbor. That's all. And then a left swing through, boy run around a girl, Ferris wheel, center slide through. Are you home? You did that just, I think, last year, and I heard it, and I'm like, that's gold. That's a plus call for me that I can remember and just jump in, and people think they're doing something with that. And you can also tell the level of a floor when you say follow your neighbor. and
Yeah.
no, there's no spread in there because it'll drop some people, and you're like, okay, I got to keep an eye on this and kind of follow it from there. So I still learn stuff.
Yeah, like at state conventions like that, at nationals, like just like really easy, simple. You're not calling 40 call sequence.
Yep.
Then just keep them really simple. Get them back at home. Okay, win, check. All right, do it again. Head square through 2 next time, and then
Yep.
do it over yonder. And so you're dancing with new people, and then get them back home. Just like real simple stuff.
And so the more I see it, the more and so I pick up every dance I go to, and I love the convention, especially Caller Lab, because I just take notes after notes, and the dances at night are just amazing. We'll talk about Caller Lab in a minute too. So you've recorded a bunch of songs. Tell me about that. Well, how many record labels? At one? How many? What all do you have going recording wise?
Yeah, so I've recorded on 3. I've done Royal. I've done that every year since 2008. Chic, which is Shauna Carey's label out of California, and then Riverboat. I've done a couple songs on Riverboat with Bob Elling.
Okay.
So the first one that I did was Free Ride. That was on Royal. That was intimidating. Because so it's like you've done it with the Nashville studio musicians where you go in, you hear them lay down the track in an hour. These incredible musicians have like a completed song, a total package.
Yeah.
But then you ain't got long. And then at Royal, we'll go to lunch. Usually it's like Subway.
Yeah.
And then we come back, and then we put down the vocals on it. So you don't have very long to like study and practice and kind of play around with it. There's some of those vocals I'll go back and listen to, and it's like, oh gosh, if I could do it again, I would do it real different.
Now that was an upside. And Tony was telling us about that when I was in Nashville. We had basically 4 days, I think it was all total. Here's your music the first night, and then the rest of the week you're doing other stuff and you're working on lyrics, and every night let's practice it, let's get this. And he was like, when we come out here to record for his label, he's like, we're 1 day in and out. We do the music in the morning and we come back, and I was like, are you kidding me? So that would be horrifying just to come in, especially if hey, I need you to do these 3 songs, and I'm like, I got to do 3 today. So that's awesome. You've done that. So I will do this when I talk to some other people that, like I say, I've just got the 1 song that I recorded. And so if you had to pick out your favorite singing call, it can be one of yours because you've got several of them. What is your favorite singing call? If somebody said, hey, Justin, come up here and do one for us, what are you going to do?
It really kind of depends. Like I'll go through phases. I'll do songs for quite a while. I was doing One Call Away for quite a while.
Good call.
Here lately. Yeah, I hadn't done that one lately. One go-to is in 2005, after Hurricane Katrina, GSI put together a song, and it was When the Saints Go Marching In.
Okay.
And I think the label is SD4K, Square Dancers for Katrina. Yep. But the music, the instrumentation in that, like they just have so many. There's like a clarinet and there's like a saxophone or a trumpet, and like it's a huge sound. That I love that one. And then just kind of just like sit back and just like see the dancers move into it. You have to really work that hard, just let the music do the work. That's a fun one.
Yep. I was talking to Scott Bennett a few days ago, and with some of his music, I said that he's got middle breaks where you just let the music play, you don't even sing. So the quality of music, I mean, all the music was quality, even when it was records. But some of the stuff that's coming out today on all the record labels, some of the music, just with what Tony and Ted are doing in Nashville with their bands, and Scott with his band, the music, I mean, it's better than some of the stuff you hear on the radio. Just play it. I mean, you can ride around, just listen to the music.
Some of those new labels, though, like a classic Royal, 1, 4, and 7 are the same, right? The opener, the middle, the closer. And so you listen to it once and you got it. But some of Scott's stuff, you got to actually practice that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. He was talking about Baker Street. I mean, that's a huge open that you just listen to the music. It's just phenomenal. You know?
But it is some really good music out there.
It is. It really is. So let's see what else we got. So here's something I haven't really talked to anybody about. What's your favorite genre of music, not square dance?
If I'm in the car, it's like 80s and 90s country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm a huge Dolly Parton fan. Okay. So but I mean like George Strait, Garth Brooks, Reba. Yeah. I think that's like just good classic music. Yeah.
We go to Dollywood a lot, my wife and I. We go, and every time I'm just like, this is going to be the day. This will be the day she decides to walk through the park, but it never has been. So
so a couple years ago at the state convention, we were, I guess it was like that Thursday, the day before the Tennessee State started. There was a big group from the club that was going, but it was going to rain. And I'm like, well, if it's going to rain, I don't want to pay that kind of money. Anyway, she did the drive-through. It's like a horse and buggy. And anyway, so everybody was holding that over me, but I decided not to go, and they saw Dolly pass right in front of me.
You know, as big as the Tennessee State Convention is, you think they could get her to come over every now and then. But what are you going to do?
I keep thinking, yeah.
You know, at some point, just make an appearance. You know, we can get 10 people to stand around her and guard her. She'll be fine. So
yeah.
Maybe one day. And so now this is something I was really looking forward to because I know one of the stories. I've only heard it. I think actually you told me a long time ago. But give me some funny stories, something that's happened to you in the calling world. And I know you're going to tell the one that I want to hear. And you don't know what it is. We did not talk before this about it. So give me a couple of things that have happened to you that are funny for you.
Oh gosh. But you know I'm going to tell you. The funny stuff usually.
You were young. The one that I'm thinking of, but you were young.
Is it my first caller school with Jared?
I don't think so. I think Bear Miller had a hand in it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yes. So 2007, Caller Lab convention. That was actually the first year I met Hunter Keller. Okay. But yeah, so Bear Miller, I was a broke college kid. And so it was Jeff Palmer, Bear. I was in a rollaway bed. And there's been some times in the last 20 years that I got a little cocky.
Okay.
And like I would, you would just like say stuff that you didn't really mean. And then you need somebody that's older and wiser to kind of put you in your place. And so I don't remember what I said, but it was something that was just cocky. Like, well, when you're the future of square dancing, blah, 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 right? So then to put me in my place, they duct taped me to a rollaway bed. And it was one of those that like you can like sit up, right. Has the footboard. And so they duct taped me to a bed. They wheeled me down the elevator into the banquet hall of the Caller Lab convention, and then 250 callers proceeded to like walk by me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Everybody was taking pictures. Yeah, so I've forgiven Bear.
Okay, I saw the picture a couple of years ago somewhere at one of the after parties. I think somebody had the picture out there, and I'd heard the story, so I definitely wanted to hear that. So give me something that we don't all know about. What else has happened to you?
Over the years, I've kind of just made every mistake, maybe twice. I don't know. There was one time I graduated high school in 2006, and every year I was scheduled to do a dance in Topeka, Kansas, for Cat Teens Club. It's like it was a family club. Okay. And they dance at Croco Hall. They have their own hall in Topeka. It's a really nice hall. Anyway, I think they paid me like 125 bucks.
Yeah.
So that was going to be on a Saturday night. Well, I got a call to do a dance the day before. Well, they wanted me to do a weekend in Gatlinburg. And I said, no, I can't do this weekend because I'm going to be in Topeka. And so they called back and they said, well, will you do the Friday night? And then we understand you got to go.
Mm.
So I drove 400 miles to Gatlinburg. I called a dance on Friday night. I woke up at like 4 a.m. to then drive 12 hours to Topeka to call a dance where I made $125 to wake up on Sunday to drive 8 hours home so that I could go to school on Monday. And, you know, at the end of the day, I probably lost 200 bucks
Oh, sure.
after all of the traveling. But man, I thought I was an A plus. Like I'm a traveling caller now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine how much my wife handles all of our finances when I do stuff like that. And yeah, I'm definitely coming out on the losing end a lot of times because I'll go anywhere, especially if it's somewhere I've never been. Because one of my little goals is to call in all 50 states, and I think I've got 9 now, so I've still got quite the road to go. But yeah, somebody will call me from like 3 states over and be like, "Yeah, we can give you 150 bucks." I'm like, "I'm on the way."
I'm there. I'm there.
I'll be there tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We'll go for 2 hours and then I'll drive all the way home. So yeah, so it's certainly not about the money for sure. I just love doing it. So we've got that. You do a lot of weekends and stuff like that, travel around. So what do you have coming up in the future? I mean, any dances you want to put out there, things like that?
Well, this weekend, so this will be kind of after we air. I'm in Minneapolis. I never called in Minnesota.
Nice.
Dan Salstrom and I are doing a weekend together.
Mm-hmm.
Got Caller Lab Nationals in June. I'm doing a couple dances in Southern California in July.
Have you called out there before?
Yeah. So, you know Marvin? He was with the Jackson Nationals. Anyway, he lived out there. He lives out there still. And
Okay.
Pat Carnathan, he owns Shakedown. Yeah.
I've met him a handful of times. Yes.
Okay. So I usually either stay with one of them when I'm in Southern California. But yeah, I mean it's a lot of fun. July on
Yeah.
out.
Now I've only had the opportunity to pass through California at LAX. Well, I'm sorry, I spent 4 days in Disneyland one time. So
Nice.
that's not really California. That's another world at Disneyland.
Yeah.
So you got that, and I saw the flyer. I'd love to call in Minnesota or the state at some point. And Dan Salstrom, I met him a couple of, well, I think just probably last year at one of the caller schools, and awesome dude. Just blown away by talking to him and stuff like that. I've met a ton of callers through the caller school, GSI school, and all that at the conventions, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast, is because there's so many just awesome dudes and women too, that you meet, and you're just like, I mean, everybody that I've ever met, regardless, they're like, hey, if there's anything you ever need, here's my phone number. If you have a question about calling, a question about, whatever, just call me. And so I love to hear the stories. Now, I do know that, have you done a cruise before?
No, but
You
that's
have
funny
one
you
coming
bring
up.
that up.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I had no idea when they asked me, it's over 70 squares.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bunch of us. There's, I don't know, 10 callers, 12 callers.
Yep.
But that'll be next February. And Hunter and I were supposed to do a cruise. I've never even been on a cruise.
Are you kidding me?
Never. Well, because I never had vacation time.
Hey, okay.
If when I started my job, I had 2 weeks vacation. Well, I wasn't gonna waste that on just like 1 week on a boat. Like that's a bunch of gigs I could do, where just leave work on Friday,
Yeah.
go somewhere, be back on Monday.
So no senior cruise in high school or anything?
No, no. So this would be my first one. We were supposed to do one after the Jackson Nationals, but because of COVID, it was canceled.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think this one's going to be good to go. It's 70 squares. that's already registered. Great lineup of callers. Jet, Ted, Tony,
Yeah.
Jack.
I tell you how I even got caught up in that. I was at we were in Pittsburgh at the last Caller Lab. Was that Caller Lab? What were
Yeah.
we just in Pittsburgh for? So I was sitting in the lobby with Tony and Jack, and so we got to talking, and they said, and I think Tony or somebody said, "Hey, do you drink whiskey?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I've got a podcast about whiskey," which is a whole nother thing that I used to do a long time ago. And so he said, "Well, let's go to the bar and find out." So the three of us, me, him, and Jack, go to the bar, and we buy a round, drinking it, and we're talking. And Jack said, he said, "Are you going on the cruise with us?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I said, "When is this cruise?" And he told me, and he was like, "Oh man, you got to come." Not making this up. He said, "It's me, Tony, Justin," and I said, "Stop. You had me at Justin." Okay.
Hey.
You can when you see Jack again, ask him. We were sitting at the bar, and I was like, "You had me at Justin. Stop right there. We'll book it this week. We're good." And so we did. We got on that, and so it's a good time. A ton of callers. Looking forward to that for sure. And you've never been on the cruise, so that's. I mean, I went on one my senior year of high school, and then of course I didn't take one for years because when you have a little kid and all that, you don't want to take them on a boat. And then of course now he's grown now, but so now that's what me and my wife do. It's just very convenient just to sit on the boat and go from place to place. So tell me about we got the cruise. What about your social media? What are you doing? Anything on there for your clubs or anything, or just yourself?
Yeah, so I'm on right now. Today, I'm the vice chair of the marketing committee for Caller Lab. Jack Pilates is the chair. We've done a lot of stuff recently with. There's a new website, Live Lively Square Dance. The marketing committee did that. We have 2 new videos that are out. 3 videos. There's 2 that are like 30-second videos, and then there's one that's like 4 minutes long that kind of gives an overview about modern square dancing. But being on that committee, I've kind of read a lot and learned a lot, trying to promote square dancing. So yeah, so I'm pretty heavy on Facebook especially, but also on Instagram. Just trying to get the word out and kind of spread, some modern flyers, some up to date information, to try to get some people into square dancing.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Tell me anything else about Justin you want us to know.
Gosh, what else is there to tell? I don't know. I've had a
Obviously started doing this when you were 7. So
I went to my first caller school. It was 2003. I couldn't drive. My dad had to drive me.
who the caller school was?
Yeah, it was John Jones, Deborah Carroll Jones,
Oh wow.
Vernon Jones, Jerry Story. That was actually the story I was going to tell. That Jerry Story chewed me out at at my first caller school. So this was like day 3 or day 4. It's 12-hour days.
Yeah, they're long days. Yeah.
And he was trying to do like the rubber band method, like head square through 4. You're looking at your corner. Okay, keep those 4 dancers together. And so anyway, so I'm trying to do it. Well, after 8, 9 calls, you do something that breaks the band.
Yeah.
And Jerry's like, no, you messed up, go back. And so anyway, after messing up a couple times, I was tired and cranky and a brat. So I was like, well, Jerry, I'm a site caller, and so I don't need to know about these rubber band things. And I don't remember what he said, but I remember it was like a punch in the gut. Like, you're not going to come to my caller school and say that this is a silly thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then later he pulled me to the side and was like, did the whole Miyagi,
Yeah.
yeah. So and then he was like, I want you to be a great caller. These are the tools you got to learn to be a great caller. but yeah, no, he was very quick to put me in my place.
Oh, that's brave to be that young and to tell somebody, no, I'm a sight caller. I'll be all right. That's
Well, I
great.
was just dumb. Yeah. And like that's not the only time. I mean, that's why I got duct
Yeah.
taped to a bed. That, especially if you think about it, like I was 16 when I called my first when I taught my first class. And so being a little punk 16-year-old
Yeah.
teaching people that are twice my age or even more to
Yeah.
dance. Like I Steve Cotman one time, he said he was joking with his dancers and they made a mistake. And so Steve said, well, Charlie, have you thought about joining a bowling league instead? Right. So then I thought, well, that's pretty funny. Well, it's not funny when a 16-year-old says it. And so, I got in trouble for that over the years. But uh, yeah, but everybody's been really nice and forgiving at times. Um, I've learned a ton of stuff. I work in banking. A lot of the stuff like building relationships, asking questions, getting to know folks is like all stuff that I use every day in the banking world. So it translates a lot.
Okay. Well, that is good. Um, no, that's a great story. And I've gone to a good handful of caller school now. Ken Ratucci's a big part of those. I've gone to his school. I just went to the one in the Northeast last year, and
Yeah.
that was an awesome time. And I've been to a couple others. I went to a Tim Mariner one right before he passed away with Paul Hensey, and it's like that. And of course, I've been calling probably about the same amount of time as you. I'm just much older. And but the same thing, they're just like, all right, keep them together. And you're going and you're just doing pattern. All of a sudden, you say couples circulate, and you're like, no, 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 you've broken them up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, okay, but I know where they are. And they're like, well, that wasn't the drill. So,
Yeah.
and but all those caller school, all the caller lab schools are just with all those guys and ladies too. That when we were in Nashville, Shauna was there, and
Yeah.
she was awesome to have around. And Scott came out also, and so there's a lot to be taken away from the caller schools for sure. You got to get out and do it too, and so I encourage as many people as I can, but then uh, not a lot of people want to put the work in. It's just like, and it's also almost like students when you pull them in on that first night. The problem we used to have when before I was a caller or anything, the clubs that I were in, they'd go out and they'd get people in. Hey, why don't you come? We're starting lessons next week. And I was like, well, you probably should tell them it's more than 2 lessons,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you draw in 30, 40 people on a night. And, when the caller goes up there and goes, all right, for the next 16 weeks, next 22 weeks, we're going to be right here. People are like, what are you talking about? They just don't understand there's a commitment there that you have to put in. And it's same with calling. Calling is way deeper than that. It's just like, hey, can you teach me to call? And be like, okay, well, you got to do more than karaoke. You can't just go up there and do singing calls. And I learned that the hard way, because I just thought I don't like to fail. And so when I first started calling, I was just like, why can't I just do all singing calls? I'll just do singing calls, be good to go. I'll learn the patterns that are in the singing calls. I don't need but Ray Monty, who's passed away, he was the first guy who really told me about it. And then somewhere along the line, I ran into Tony, and Tony was like, this is what people pay you for. It's pattern. The singing is great. But it's the pattern that says this is not a better caller, but this caller is more entertaining because of what he can do. You have the entertainers, the singers that are phenomenal singers out there. But then when that one comes in with patter that just blows you away, when I was talking to Sean Butler, I was telling him that I was like, I'll be out there dancing. And my wife is, she'll tell me, she's like, you got to be quiet. Because the whole time I'm sitting there and I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Because I'm blown away by some of the stuff that they call and I don't see it. And, there's like boom, 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 element left. I'm like, are you kidding me? And my wife's like, please stop saying that. So, because I still get, excited when I hear a good patter. So that's why I work at it. Well, Justin, we've got Reno coming up in a few weeks. that is going to be a good time. I'm sure you're going to be busy with working with Caller Lab also. You've got some, I saw it on Facebook. Do you, off the top of your head, without, I mean, you can look if you want, but the auction, some of the stuff that they're auctioning off on that, tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm the chair of Ways and Means.
Okay.
And so we just try to raise money for the foundation. Um, so that helps with caller education. And so, and some other things. But a lot of the money that we raise goes to caller scholarships that Caller Lab puts on for people to go to caller school. It has a real kind of grassroots effort, because you go to caller school, then you come home, you teach a class, you got new dancers in your area. Anyway, so all of that to say, this year we're doing 3 different things, Ways and Means, at the Reno Caller Lab Convention. On Sunday night is the pre-convention dance. So we have like Mike Seastrom, Vic Cedar, Hunter, Dee Dee. Is a great group of callers. All the money raised goes towards the foundation.
Okay.
We're doing a live auction. That's going to be on Tuesday night. Vernon Jones, his dad, John Jones, are going to be the auctioneers. So some of the things that we're auctioning are opportunities to record on Royal, on Rhythm, Chic, ESP. So there's 4 recording opportunities. Ted is donating some music from Throwback Tunes.
Okay.
Let's see. We have some quilts that are being donated that we'll auction off. Caller Lab is going to have like a Caller Lab bundle. And so there'll be several items in that. There's a caller school. I think you mentioned earlier you went to the Northeast Callers College.
Yeah, with Ken Ritucci, yep.
Yeah, and so he threw in one of those, so it'll be a scholarship to go this year in October. And actually, we hadn't even put this one out on Facebook yet, but Rick Hampton out of California, he's donating a package. You get all 6 of his record labels. So it's every tune on Goldwing, on Ego, Alter Ego, Fine Tunes, Happy Tracks. And there's one more. Oh gosh, Rick is gonna call me and he's gonna kill me for this. Well, 5 out of 6 ain't bad, but I mean, it's a heck of a deal. It's going to be a lot of songs. So anyway, we tried to kind of cover the gamut for things that we thought would be popular. That's going to be on Tuesday night, and then throughout the convention is going to be a silent auction.
Okay.
And so, anyway, so lots of opportunities. Hoping it'll be real successful. All the money goes towards the foundation.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's, and you know, I plan on bidding on several things because there's a lot of that stuff I'd love to record some more, and the caller schools and the quilts for sure. I'd love that too. But I'll tell you, and not one school over the other by any means, because I went to Tony and Ted's TOTL and it was phenomenal. In a week in Nashville, one night we actually drove into Nashville. And it's just such a good time. And but Ken's school with the Northeast Caller School, that setup he has where there's have you been to that one, that actual one? They've got the hall. It's a ton of callers in the school, and he's got usually a staff of 4 or 5 and a couple others helping out. But they have an after party every night. I'm big into the after parties myself. And so it's just this huge party every night. It's just such a good time. And I'd never been or spent any time in the Northeast, and it's up, you know, and so it was just a lot of fun. And you get to spend time with all these, you know, callers. That's what they do. The Ken Bertucci's, Tony, Ted, and that whole bunch up there.
Tom Miller's going to be there this year.
Tom Miller's there this year. I talked to Tom a couple weeks ago about doing the podcast with me. He's going to do that as soon as I can get him locked down on the date. Because I've seen Tom comes to a lot of the Georgia conventions. And so that's where, you know, early on I'd bump into him. And so he's a lot of knowledge for sure to talk to about square dancing. And so that's what I'm looking for the folks that don't get out, don't get to travel as much, whether it be from work or they just don't want to go out and meet other callers. So I've had the opportunity with Caller Lab and with going to conventions. So it's a lot of good times out there. But we'll cut it on that. Justin, I will see you in a few weeks in Reno. And then, of course, we'll be at the Nationals. I'm sure you'll be there for the caller school, or I'm assuming you'll be there for GSI.
No, I'm not going to do the caller school this year. I'll get there. I think the trail and dance on Wednesday is when I'll get there. I got to work sometime.
Well, yeah, no, I get it.
Can't do everything.
But you need to start being a caller coach, man. You start working on it. Start teaching us.
It's definitely on my list.
Is it?
So I'm on the EC for Caller Lab now. So the executive committee. So we meet once in the fall and once in the spring. Well, then 3 times a year, I guess, because we're also at the Caller Lab convention. Okay. So that kind of takes up a lot of the time. But yeah, I'll do that caller school stuff at some point.
Okay. All right, brother. Well, Justin, it's awesome talking to you, man. We've been friends for a couple of years now through square dancing and, having a little fun on the outside of the square dances and all that. When Tennessee, we had a good time this past year. We all went out afterwards. I got to be starstruck by sitting at the table with Jet Roberts and talking to him. Yeah. And I was just like, this is Jet Roberts. Jet Roberts is right here, because I'd never actually got to meet him. And then you realize that he's just a cool dude and a lot of fun to talk to. So, man, I will see you in a couple of weeks. Absolutely looking forward to seeing you in Reno, Nevada. I want to thank you for that, Justin. So get out, buy some of Justin's music. It's always good stuff. He's on a ton of labels, so get out there. 3 labels, correct?
Well, so I record on Royal, so that's kind of the main one. I've just done some guest appearances.
Okay. Oh, I will absolutely get out there and buy some of that stuff. That's good stuff for Justin. Justin's phenomenal to dance to. Make sure this is Square Dance Callers Talking. Like, share, follow, subscribe, all that stuff on YouTube and Spotify. So, Justin, I'll see you soon, brother. It was a pleasure talking to you. See you, buddy.
All right.